Our New Testament reading and preaching text can be found in Romans chapter 12, verses 9 through 21. Romans 12, verses 9 through 21. Let love be genuine. Hate what is evil. Hold fast to what is good. Love one another with mutual affection. Outdo one another in showing honor. Do not lag in zeal. Be ardent in spirit. Serve the Lord. Rejoice in hope. Be patient in suffering. Persevere in prayer. Contribute to the needs of the saints. Extend hospitality to strangers. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse them. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Weep with those who weep. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be haughty, but associate with the lowly. Do not claim to be wiser than you are. Do not repay anyone evil for evil, but take thought for what is noble in the sight of all. If it is possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all. Beloved, never avenge yourselves, but leave room for the wrath of God. For it is written, "Vengeance is mine. I will repay," says the Lord. No, if your enemies are hungry, feed them. If they are thirsty, give them something to drink. For by doing this, you will heap burning coals on their heads. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
In many places in Scripture, we see God do some big, amazing thing. Something that just says, hey, I'm God and you're not. And the responses we see at those moments from those that are watching are a range of things. The most common one is fear. Just all out fear that when God plays the God card, it is just fear-inspiring, awe-inspiring at that moment. But another expression that we see from the observers at that time is just recognizing the differences between God and between us. The Apostle Peter, at one of these moments with Jesus, said, "Get away from me, Lord. I'm not like you are." These can be deeply humbling moments. For me, reading Romans 12 is one of those types of deeply humbling moments. In its words, I see who God is and how God acts, and I am all too aware of how different I am. I don't act like God. Rarely. At least not nearly enough. And when I see God really be God, there is just this other experience to it. But my hope resides in the reality that I serve a God who is exactly like this, who is able to live up to these words. And that matters more than whether I can. As Jesus is creating His new kingdom, one that will unite heaven and earth, He's calling us to act more godly. And the Apostle Paul, writing to the church in Rome, picks up on that idea and carries the message forward. Let love be genuine. Hate what is evil. The Apostle Paul is speaking to a church he's never visited. Sit in that for a moment. Think what that must be like. Have you ever had a situation where you spoke this boldly to a group that you didn't know? How did that go? I'm guessing not so well. Dale Carnegie's famous book was titled How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I'm guessing that there's not a chapter that says, act like the Apostle Paul did here. But Paul speaks this way because of whom he's speaking for. Paul calls this church to the Christian position of recognizing that both good and evil exist. That puts Christianity in tension with other religions and some other more current points of view that tend to just say that, everything's just a range of good. Christianity says that some things, concepts, ideas, actions are in their nature good. They add to the betterment of humanity. But some things don't. Some things are evil. They destroy people, relationships, or the world that God has given us, and they are not in line with the kingdom that Jesus is bringing about. The problem is, because of our junk and our sin, we often have trouble telling what is good and what is evil, and we mislabel them. The Roman Church is doing that too. They're having trouble with what's right and what's wrong. There seems to be a significant amount of conflict in this church. So Paul, in his most theological letter, addresses several areas where there is concern. But after he gets through all of that, where he lands, where he spends time at, is what needs to happen now because of those realities. How the church members need to carry themselves. This entire passage that we read goes back and forth. I felt like it was a little bit of a tennis match at times. It goes back and forth between how we act to those inside the church, those who are around us and next to us, those that are in your living room right now, and how we interact with those who are outside of the church. But in both cases, Paul is arguing that how we act is under the lordship of Christ, and that we are under that lordship should be evident as people interact with us. To this conflicted church, Paul instructs them to live in a non-hypocritical way. A few years back, I had a roommate, and I don't remember the exact situation, but we were getting ready for something. We were about to head out the door, and we had the TV on, and we stopped on C-SPAN. Now, some of you that know me know I was a political science major, so you think, oh, he's doing his political nerd thing. I'm not a frequent C-SPAN watcher, so I don't even know why we got there. But there was a rally going on that caught our attention, and we stopped on it, and so we're getting ready, but we're heading out the door soon. And the stuff that was going on in this rally, my roommate didn't like. And the more they talked, the more they called for action, the more they said, do this, do that, don't do this other thing, the more you could see him getting worked up, And he was getting himself really, really wound up, to the point where smoke was about to come out of his ears. His face was all cramped together like this, just all really angry. And he starts yelling at the TV. And he starts yelling at the people that are yelling on the TV. And he says, you know why they're yelling? Do you know why they're yelling? Because they're insecure. And after he had done this 3 or 4 times, there was this long pause. And I was standing behind him, and he turns back to me and he goes, maybe I'm insecure too. Issues in others seem so clear, don't they? But as his warning also reminds us, it is so easy to overlook our own issues or issues of others that we know and care about. That's not what it means to love. We can't say something's okay when it isn't, to ourselves or to anyone else. Love has to pour out of us, but it can't be blind to what isn't right. We have got to oppose those things in life that are truly evil. And in the world today, there is always somebody who is saying to us what is evil, saying this is evil, that is evil. And if you're like me, you often find that the people who are saying that the most are often the ones that have something to gain in the argument, something to gain if we agree with their point of view. We regularly get sucked into and confused by what we should get mad at and what we shouldn't. How about you? What are the things that get you wound up, that get you angry? Are they the things that would get Jesus angry? Remember, Jesus wasn't this cosmic goody-goody, this always sweet guy who said the encouraging word. He got angry a lot. But ask yourself, are the things that make me mad similar to the things that made Jesus mad? If they are not, we haven't submitted those things to the lordship of Christ. We've withheld that from Jesus. Paul begins by talking about goodness, love, and evil. But notice how much more time he spends on things that are associated with love. Hold on to what is good. Love each other. Show honor to each other. He wants to see this community define themselves by how they love rather than the disagreements that are defining them right now. Out of this kind of love comes a renewed focus to serve God with energy and generosity. This comes from a right frame of mind. If we love God, these kinds of things should come out of us. Basically, we will take the love that we have been given and give it away. We give love away to people we know. In this text, it called them saints. And to people we don't know. In this text, spoke of them as strangers. Extending kindness to strangers is a biblical theme. You can find it from the earliest points in the Bible to the latest points in the Bible. We aren't just supposed to be kind to our group, to our people who are like us. We're supposed to be kind across the board. We're supposed to reach out to our neighbor. There is a biblical mandate to be hospitable to those that we don't know. I have a friend whose parents are first-generation immigrants to this country, and they live in a big city where a lot of people from their part of the world wind up. And my friend's mom is part of a small group, and this small group does work with these immigrants as they arrive and helps them with things like what markets that they'll like, what markets have the kind of food that they're familiar with and want to buy, what other services are, all kinds of things that you need to know when you come into the United States. But the other thing that they share with these people is their love of Jesus. And one year, directly related to this small group, 37 people started following Jesus. My friend told me that if you said to his mom and her friends that they are evangelists, they'd be like, "Oh no, we know what evangelists look like, and they don't look anything like us." Well, I would say the proof's in the pudding, right? But what is really powerful to me in this story is the motivation of these people. The motivation of the people wasn't to descend on these people and get them to follow Jesus like they do. They're just doing what's right, what they're called to do. And the response of it is that people around them are following Jesus because of what they're doing. In the second paragraph we're looking at, Paul gives several instructions for what to do in times of suffering. While you might have thought the instructions in the first paragraph were rough enough, the instructions in the second paragraph seem ludicrous. In trying to put a title on this whole section, I said, whatever you feel like you should do in times of persecution, do the complete opposite. I think that is the basic gist of what's going on. The examples of this are bless those that persecute you. Get along with those you live with. If our church had a, hey, come in and talk to the staff day if you're having problems with your neighbors, how many days would we be here? Just serving all of the different issues and the different problems that happen with those that we live near. In the first house my wife and I owned, my absolute favorite part of it was this giant, beautiful, healthy oak tree that shared the property line with our neighbor to the back of our house. One day she had that oak tree cut down. And as I tell you about that, I am still not happy about that. Like I said, it was healthy. It was my favorite part of the house. And I stewed over that for the longest time. But you know what helped? I'm not saying it fixed me, but what helped? I was reading a book that talked about one of the early church fathers, Ignatius. Now, the church fathers were the theologians in the first and second centuries that kind of came in on the heels of the apostles. Some of them likely knew some of the apostles. They were very instrumental in setting up the church as we now know it, how things work in the church. And so I'm reading this book, and it's talking about all that Ignatius did in that way, with setting up different structures in the church. But the thing that was the most powerful to me at this time was when they talked about Ignatius' teaching on martyrdom. See, to be a Christian in the latter first, and definitely in the second century was a dangerous proposition. It often wound up in you being murdered for your faith. And Ignatius knew, like, I'm well known, I'm well written, they know where to come and get me. At some point, my life is going to end up in being martyred, being taken for my faith. And he spent a lot of time teaching and training those that were under him, his disciples and the people in his churches and stuff. And what he said to them was, "Don't avenge me." Now, this is completely the opposite of what we heard in the movie Red Dawn, when the father says to his sons, "Avenge me." Ignatius said to those who followed him, "Don't take revenge." Why would he say something like that? Wouldn't it make more sense, and wouldn't it endanger others if they didn't do something? If they responded, maybe they could prevent these people from doing it again. Maybe less would die, right? The reason Ignatius taught this way, because although he cared about the physical situation of his followers, he cared about their souls more. He believed Jesus. He trusted in the words of the apostles. And because he was concerned for the well-being of his flock, he warned them about the toxicity of revenge and seeing someone's life as the most important. Seeing your own life as the most important. See, often the moral instructions of the Bible are counter to our culture and counter to our instincts. They aren't about winning a battle at this moment, they're about winning the war of life. And the result of the gospel being unleashed in our souls is a lifetime of realizing and recognizing that Jesus leads us another way than we've been biologically conditioned to expect. What Jesus values is often not what we value, but what Jesus values matters so much more. What's been done about evil? Well, for the Christian, the answer comes earlier in this letter by Paul. In Romans 5, 6 through 11, God took the weight of humanity's sin upon himself, opening the way for a new kingdom and a way of life for all of humanity. And because of this, it allows followers of Christ to live counter to our culture that surrounds us and entices us. So when we have a neighbor that cuts down our tree, or backs into our mailbox, or porch pirates our Amazon order, we believe in something greater and more lasting than our current situation. Something that allows us to be concerned about the things Jesus would be concerned about. This is why we see people in the church donate their time, give of their resources, serve in the church and outside the church. We do these things because we follow a God that has defeated our enemies and freed us to live differently than what our bodies often tell us we need to live. But don't make a mistake that can happen from reading only this text. Don't think being a Christ follower is about behavior management. Nothing could be further from the truth. Being a Christ follower is a response to where we are called and a reaction to understanding Jesus' ministry more and more. To lay down what we thought of as our needs and follow in the way that Christ leads. More and more, let's have these big, overwhelming moments with God and be captivated by the understanding of what Jesus has done for us, and what Jesus is doing for us currently. Believe that he has defeated evil. That as Christians we play with a safety net because there is only so far we can fall. Respond. Respond with all of our flaws and messiness to the God that is the only one that can live this out. And although we will never get it right, not fully, as we open up our lives alongside others in the church who will walk this journey with us, we will see God transform us more and more. This list is not about following this list. It's about believing in what Jesus has done for us so we can experience the evidence of Christ's work in us. Whatever your age, whatever your stage of life, see if God doesn't have a life-altering experience in front of you. See if as we grasp the work that God is doing, that it doesn't release us more and more from the soul-damaging realities that we say we have to have. This is God's hope for us. This is God's hope for our church.
Join us at First Presbyterian Church every Sunday on our website, or watch us on My 11 Sunday mornings at 9.